Welcome to the Versa Business Tips Podcast. I'm your host, founder, and CEO of Versa Business Systems, Shaheen Mazloom. We are here with a very special guest, Brad Englert. He's a consultant in the IT space, helps businesses with everything IT related. Thanks for joining us today. How you doing, Brad?
Great. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So for those out there that don't know who you are, what your company does, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was with Accenture for 22 years, 10 years as a partner, and doing large transformational projects, about half in higher ed, the rest in private sector. And then I happily retired. And 2 years later, the University of Texas at Austin called me and asked me to help them with an IT strategy. And that's where I got my graduate degree. So, of course, I said yes. And I started, and within a year, I was the chief information officer, and I served for 7 years as chief information officer. So 54,000 students, 4,000 faculty, 21,000 staff, 250,000 devices hooking to the network every day.
Jeez.
And we really just modernized it, moved as much as we could to the cloud.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. So, a lot of your, I guess your work is helping modernize companies or getting them onto the new wave of technology and security as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays security is so important. I mean, it's crazy the amount of, the other day I was reading an article about a hospital that got hacked by the Russian mob down in Texas, Austin, I think.
Yeah.
And, it's just crazy that stuff is happening, right? Like you've got this big hospital and they're not up to date.
The university is attacked 24/7 every day. And it's state sanctioned actors, China, Iran, North Korea, and then it's the bad guys, the cartels.
That's crazy.
And so we just have a very sophisticated way to sniff the network and find bad actors.
Yeah. So now they're trying to get data, right? Is it more like stealing people's identities? Is that what they're going after, or what is attracting them to
for
attack
us? They're
these
trying
things?
to get our research, and we have a lot of National Science Foundation and Defense Department research. Now, the Defense Department research, we actually have an electronic moat around. So they're not connected to the internet at all.
Right.
And when you go visit them, you're giving up your phone. You have to have a security clearance. So we take that very seriously.
Wow. Very cool. Like, for those that aren't, I guess, in the know and understand how universities work, we just think of students and professors and, we don't tend to think about all the, the research that they're doing and the things that's going on behind the scenes. That's attractive to the bad guys of the world, right? Or the people in different countries that are trying to, compete for, whether it's economic relief or, war tactics or whatever it may be, right? They say World War III will be all about infrastructure, right? Attacking infrastructure.
Yep.
And what's the biggest infrastructure we have? All internet based, right? Getting into the cloud, getting into the internet, hacking people's data and information.
Yep.
So besides helping companies, become more secure, and, what are some things that you're noticing now as far as changing over into the topic of AI? Are you guys doing anything with that right now, or trying to keep away from it, or what's your take on AI?
Welcome to AI. It's the future.
Love it. So that's the latest book you wrote?
Yeah, I didn't write this. Actually, it was recommended to me by a venture capitalist here in town.
Okay.
And he said his firm is all in on investing in AI. So that and quantum computing, and getting back to the cybersecurity, people are using AI and quantum computing to crack things. So a lot of deep fakes now that, look very realistic, and they're using that to extract money from people.
Yeah. It's crazy. I was, I got a link, it was probably a few months ago, in a text message, right? And when I opened the link, it looked like I was on Walmart.com. And I wasn't. I was on Walmart.co or something, something very close to it. But, had it been, say, my mother who's 65 and was looking
Right.
to buy something on Walmart, her card information would have been stolen, and I mean, God knows what else, right?
Yep. Yep.
So it's unfortunate, the uh, all this technology can be used for great,
Yeah.
and the bad thing is that it can also be used for bad, right? Like
That's right.
we went through the same thing when the internet came out.
Hmm.
Right. I mean, I was young, I mean, I remember having dial up as a kid, but I remember there was that worry and that fear like there is with AI, right? It's the
Hmm.
same thing. We're seeing the exact same thing, the same conversations,
Right.
and the government saying, look, we've got to control this. And so they're trying to, what baffles me is they have people that barely know how to use an iPhone putting these, this legislature in place. But that's a different topic.
Yeah. Well, I'm
uh,
professionally paranoid. That's for sure.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I wish they had, some people that understood it a little bit more.
Hmm.
Up there in the high office creating these regulations when it comes to AI and targeting and information and all that.
Hmm.
But, what are some the companies that you're dealing with, are they more on the larger scale like universities and people that have thousands of employees, or are you also dealing with some of your small medium-sized businesses?
Well, with the firm, all our customers were huge corporations, multinational.
Yeah.
Accenture being a multinational corporation, and I had one project where it was a telecommunications company, and we were doing development around the world, around the sun. We followed the sun, and so we had coders in India working when we were sleeping, and vice versa.
Wow.
So yeah, just the big projects. Since I left the university, it's been smaller projects, but
Right.
still a
So
lot
so
of.
with that company, we're working with your larger businesses. I feel like a lot of the times businesses go for the lower hanging fruit, right? Like it's easier to get a hold of the owner of a small pizza shop versus trying to do business with either the CEO, CFO, or trying to figure out who you need to talk to at those
Mhm.
larger corporations. What would you say to a company like, for me, for example, if I'm trying to figure out who I need to speak to at a certain company
Right.
to handle whether it be financial services or what have you? There's
Mm.
so many layers of people. Like, how do you go about figuring out, one, who you need to talk to, and then two, getting them to actually have a conversation with you about the product or service that you can offer them that's going to actually help their company?
Sure. Well, the simple answer is you need to do a lot of homework.
Yeah.
And I had vendors come to me and they hadn't checked my website. They don't know what my objectives are, don't know what my
Right.
values are, know what my strategy is. They're just there for the transaction,
Yeah.
and
And
they
you can
don't last.
always tell when you have a conversation with somebody like that. They don't
Yeah,
know a damn thing about you. They don't care about you,
they
right?
don't
That's what
care.
they're telling you.
So I have three principles in all business relationships, and whether it's your boss or a customer or a vendor, and
Yeah.
that's understand their goals and aspirations.
Yeah.
Go in curious, what are they trying to achieve?
Yeah.
Having looked at their website, you know where they're headed. You know what the vision is. You know where they're trying to
Yes.
get 5 years
Yeah.
from now.
Yep.
And then, second principle is set and manage expectations. So once you determine you can help, be very clear on how you can help and when you can help. And
Right.
then third is genuinely care about their success.
Yes.
If you do those three things, you'll be successful.
Yes.
If I'm trying to sell to an organization, I do my homework and then I create a power map. So I get the org chart out and I circle those people who are not just in high positions, but sometimes they're people who are in less obvious positions who are influencers.
Right.
So, for example, I worked with this large research one university, and the chief of staff of the CFO had been there 25 years, trusted by the CFO. She was a
Right.
problem solver. She could really make things happen. Well, I
Yeah.
built a relationship with her, and we transformed all the administrative systems over 2-3 years.
Yeah.
I go to another our Research One university, meet with the chief of staff, the CFO, and she goes, "I've only been here for a couple of years. I'm doing these little boring projects. I don't think you should talk to me." So it's like, okay, good. Thank you. You just saved me an hour today.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's just being very strategic and intentional.
Right. Yeah. The intention is huge, and being genuine, right? Yeah. Like you said, a lot of people are just very transaction. They're there for the transaction. I love the way you said that. Because you can always tell they're just trying to get a deal done, right? So, they don't care who it's with or what it's for, or
I had the my most hated vendor list and my most beloved vendor list.
I love that.
And so my most hated guy, the account rep would show up once a year for his maintenance check, which was always 10% more. And then I wouldn't hear from him all year. And and I actually hired his company to do an upgrade that broke things that had worked for 5 years.
Oh, no.
So I'm actually with my son on vacation in Baku, Azerbaijan, sending a flaming email to this account rep saying, "I have 54,000 of my closest friends showing up in 2 weeks. You better fix this."
Right.
And guess what? Over the next year, we found another vendor who is much more responsive, much more modern tools, more secure, and I fired that first vendor.
Yep, I bet.
And the new vendor was, when we went live, the senior vice president for sales called me to see if everything was okay. That's someone who cares.
100%.
Yep.
100%. Yeah, I mean, it's the thing is, in this day and age, information is so easily put out there, right? Like as soon as you've got a bad name or you've got the the reputation of being lazy and not caring and getting cut off from contracts or getting fired by clients, etc., you're done. Stick a fork in you, because once that starts happening and that information gets out there, nobody's going to want to work with you.
That's right.
About
80 to 90% of Accenture's customers are repeat customers. There's trust built there. And it's, as you know, it costs less to sell to an existing customer than a new customer.
There's nothing more important. That was my biggest thing. When I started this company 8 years ago, I had been in B2B for 10 years or so before that. And none of the companies I ever worked for really cared. It was always about the transaction, making the commission, making the money, increasing the revenue for the company. It wasn't, in our sales meeting, it wasn't, "Hey, how much did you help someone today?" It was, "How much money did you make today?" Right. And I just got sick of it. So I decided to go out on my own, and I swore to myself, so we're just going to focus on helping people. We're going to give them the best price possible, and we're going to make more money because we're going to keep our customers for life. Right.
I had a company. They had turnover 50% in their customers. It's like holes in the bucket,
Right. It's like you're spending so much money acquiring each of those customers.
Yep.
Keep them as long as you can. You give them a great deal. I always tell my guys, they're like, well, why don't we charge broker fees? Because all the other companies are making twice the amount of money. I'm like, yeah, but you get one customer, you're going to fund that business 15, 20 times. Whereas everybody else, they might make double on the first deal, but they're probably only going to do one deal.
Yeah.
You're going to do 20. So you're going to make 10 times as much.
Yep.
Right. And, when I was a little kid, I started my first business when I was 7, and my dad explained to me, he's like, it's better to make $5 5 times than it is to make $10 one time.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
And that always stuck with me. And that's the reason why we operate the way we do. We actually care. We give them a good price. We give them a good deal. We take care of them. At the end of the day, we'll keep them forever. So we'll make more money in the long run rather than burning and turning.
Yeah,
people do that with employees too. Like they're jerks to their employees, and they're constantly spending their time hiring.
Well, it's a learnable skill, and so you're creating a culture where your sales guys can learn that.
Exactly.
And you don't have to be born with the ability. You just have to be taught.
Yeah. exactly. If you're a good person, you care about people.
Hmm.
That's always my philosophy. Like I'll hire the person that is you can just tell is a really good person and actually cares versus the guy that has a ton of experience.
So when I first got to the university, I asked this professor who'd been there 40 years, kind of a crusty character, and I said, "Okay, give me some advice." He goes, "Get out of the office and tell people you give a damn." And that was the best advice, because my
Yeah.
predecessor would be in the ivory tower, expect people to come to him and supplicate. And it's like, get out there and meet with your
Yeah.
peers, meet with
Yeah.
your influencers. I would meet every 4 weeks with the VP for public safety. Well, why would
Right.
I do that? Because something's going to go wrong. And we
Yeah.
need to be prepared proactively for when things go wrong.
Yeah.
And his organization and I, we work very well together. We had a shooting, we had a bomb scare, we had
Wow.
101,000 people show up at the stadium every other Saturday. So I had 50
Jeez.
people working the game. He had 50 people working the game, because I had
Right.
building security, I had video security, and he had all the rest. So,
Man, that's a
but he,
lot to take on. Like, how do you were you weren't working anything that large scale before you went to the university, were you, or you were?
now most of my clients were big universities.
Okay,
So
so
Ohio State, for
you were
example.
used to being around this large, like
Yeah, yeah.
it just it. How do you, I guess, how do you prepare yourself to go from doing business with somebody that has maybe 20, 30 employees to now whatever you do with this, like there's so many people that are affected by what you're doing, right?
Hmm.
Like everybody is counting on you and the work that you do, from the students to the staff to the, I mean, you've got hundreds of thousands of people, right,
That
relying on you to protect them. Like how do you process that in your mind? And like what is it that I know for me, like I care like about my employees and my employees' families and
hmm
my clients and my clients' families.
Yep.
But like it gets on such a larger scale when you're talking about hundreds of thousands of
Well, my
people.
first year was H1N1 swine flu, and the president
Wow.
and leadership asked if we could go online. And unfortunately, all our equipment was 8 to 10 years old. Our
Oh
email
man.
system was 20 years old, custom built. So if you're a faculty member, you had 100 maximum emails. Students had
Oh
50.
man.
So to get the next one, you had to delete one. Our file storage was expensive. We honestly, we could not do it, and that
Right.
scared me. And so over the next 8 years, we moved all the major IT services to the cloud: student email, faculty and staff email, Teams for video, Zoom,
Right.
our learning management system. Just
So now was that done just like, you put a plan in place on day one and you just started knocking them out one
Yeah,
by one,
yeah.
or
So
was it as
we talked to two, three, probably 300 to 400 people on campus to create an IT strategy,
right?
and what were the needs, and
What's working, what's not, like where
exactly.
do we
And
need to
then every
focus?
year
Yeah.
we would update it.
Yeah.
So align our capital budget and operating budget. So we replaced all the phones, 21,000 phones, to voice over IP. Um, Learning management system used by 54,000 students and
Wow.
4,000 faculty. It took 2 years for each of those projects because we're just so big.
Right.
So fast forward to March 2020, my successor increased Zoom, increased VPN, and 70,000 people went online to do work, teaching, learning, and research. And they were there for a year and a half. Now
Wow.
they're hybrid, but it took 8 years to get there.
Right. Right. Had you not done all that work for 8 years, they would have never been able to
Right. It would have
survive. I
been
mean,
like me the
yeah.
first year.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy the stuff that we do that we don't even realize we're going to need in the future, but it's so important to stay with the new technology because you
Right.
don't know, like if you get too far behind, like you said, like it could be detrimental, right?
Hmm.
When you get so far behind, it's like the businesses that I talk to that haven't even started doing anything with AI yet. I'm like, you gotta get on this thing, right? There's still businesses out there that don't have websites.
So
And
when
it's
we
just
had
like,
equipment,
what are you
when we had
doing?
servers that were 8 to 10 years old, you could not buy any more. They didn't
I
make them
bet.
anymore.
Right. It's insane. Insane. I don't understand how people can I mean, I'd be terrified if we had outdated technology because I
Yeah.
mean, technology, especially nowadays, there's so many tools out there that are just absolutely incredible and can make your job so much easier. Like when I first started this company, in order for me to reach the revenue goals that I had at that time, 8 years ago, I needed to eventually have 100 employees.
Hmm.
Right now, when I reached 10 employees, I realized I do not want to manage 100 people. I'm
Hmm.
like, this ain't gonna happen. But by then, by realizing that, I realized, well, we don't really need 100 employees. We need 10 employees, and we need the right technology.
Hmm.
Because if you
Hmm.
can make it so 10 employees can do the same amount of work that you used to need 100 employees to do,
Hmm.
you're good. Like I mean, they're already seeing 1-2 man companies doing billions in revenue. Like
Yeah.
that's never been. It's like unheard of.
Well, and
Five, ten
that's where
years
the
ago.
the cloud comes in handy because you don't
Yeah,
have to buy equipment that
exactly.
ages out every 3 years. You don't need a
Yeah,
data center.
yeah.
Just you don't need
There's
all
so
that
many
upfront
expenses
capital.
that have just been cut off that you don't need anymore.
That's right.
It's amazing. So before we end today, what are some what would you say is the best advice that you have as far as to the business owners out there that may not be as advanced as they need to be? Like they always say, can't teach old dog new tricks. That's BS. What advice would you have for those people that aren't advancing technology within their business?
Well, they need to be aware of what is available out there. Talk to different vendors and see how they can meet your needs. Be strategic, be intentional would be my advice. And uh, you have to take some risks,
Yeah.
calculated risks. So
Yep.
when we made all those transitions to the cloud, I mean, that there were hundreds of thousands of ways things could go wrong.
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
what I said to my team, 330 people, is things will go wrong. It's how we
Yeah.
deal with it when they do go wrong.
100%.
But I think just being strategic and intentional
Yeah.
is really the key to be
Yeah, you
successful.
bring a great point. I mean, intentional is everything, right? So like people are like, I want to just start using AI, but what do you want to do? What is your intention? What are
Right.
you trying to do?
That's
What
right.
is what is the task at hand, right? Where are you trying to get to? What do you want to do? And if you're intentional with it, it's very easy to figure out where to start, and then you just keep going from there.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So Brad, for our viewers and listeners today, what do you have for us?
I'm going to send you a link so they can get a free sample of the book, get a
Great.
flavor for the book. If they like it, the second tab will be how to get the book. It's an audiobook or ebook or whatever. And then third is they can schedule time on my calendar
Awesome.
for a
Very
quick
cool.
chat.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. Get those links over to me. I'll make sure to put it in the description. That way people can access it and have access to you and your company.
Great.
But before we part ways, what does that process look like? So say, I'm let's just say a small company, right? And I know we're not really where we need to be. We need to get more organized with the right technology. Can you walk me through like how that process works? Is it we start with a conversation and you're logging into our computers and figuring out what we need, or how does that work?
Well, I had a Texas based retail liquor chain reach out to me. They had grown from one store to 40 stores to
Yeah.
100 stores, and their IT was stuck at about 30 stores. And so we just stepped back and created a strategy. What is most important? And things that are not important, like email and stuff, outsource.
Right.
Store support, outsource. And then we focused on what the customers wanted, which was mobile app and delivery. And I was able to get the resources to there so they could get the mobile app and delivery going.
Right.
And they had 40 stores up when the pandemic hit. So they had a sales channel they never had. And of course, they increased it to all the stores, all 100.
Right.
And all through the pandemic, I would get online and test it to make sure I could get my booze delivered
Right.
correctly. And so that was kind of fun. But you have to have a strategy.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. So it starts with the strategy, and then, I'm assuming you put together a proposal like, hey, this is our plan. Here's what it's going to cost. Here's what it's going to do. I can either do it for you, or,
That's correct.
you take it and, run with it if you want.
That's right.
And I'm assuming most people decide to have you implement it. Awesome, man. So Brad, pleasure having you on the show. Really excited to talk to you again in in the next year or two to kind of see where everything's at. It's really exciting times. I don't know how you feel about it, but the way the country is right now, and the big changes that are happening in technology, and it's just it's really exciting, and for business as a whole. I see a lot of businesses. There's a lot of businesses up for sale. There's a lot of new people coming into business, a lot of new businesses being opened, and I'm just excited to see where we're at in the next couple of years.
And my advice to your listeners is get out of the office and tell them you care.
Yes, absolutely. Super important. Get in front of your clients, show them that you're there, that you care about them, and they'll do the same in return, and they'll stay with you for as long as you're around. And that's the name of the game. That's how you win. You keep a client for life, and you're good. And then you can sell the second and third and fourth and fifth product to them, rather than constantly having to acquire new clients.
And if they're not a good client, you can let them go.
Exactly. It's a beautiful thing when you got too many clients, right? Love it. Thanks, Brad. You have yourself a great night, and we'll chat soon.
Okay, thank you.